Hey everybody, welcome back to Video So taking another fun and exciting episode for you guys this morning because just recently I played Turbo OutRun Reimagined just for fun because I was aware of the project. Really didn't go into this anticipating making a video, but as I played through this I realized one thing. This is one of the best arcade racing games I have played in years, even if it is OutRun and Turbo OutRun. The ability of the developer Skids to take such a retro game and revamp it into a modern context is mind-blowingly incredible. This is 2D and 3D at the same time. It moves at a blistering pace, and it is maybe one of the most fun versions of OutRun I have ever played. It marries the modern to the antiquated so perfectly. This just basically feels like what would have happened if 3D development never really hit Sega and they just tried to make 2D games look as pretty as possible for the next 3 decades. Before we get too far involved, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out and all that. But let's get right back into Turbo OutRun Reimagined. You'll see here as we move on to the next stage, this golden hour sunset, this fire red, just looks so spectacular coming out of this engine. The most fun part is you can play this directly in your web browser, although I am using the downloaded version because it has a better frame rate and better music. And I am playing this in ultra wide mode because it offered it, and I think it looks spectacular in the ultra wide aspect ratio. Now this is just OutRun and OutRun's derivatives. There's nothing in the courses that is going to be something you've never seen before for the most part. What it is an absolutely modern version of OutRun, looking absolutely incredible, controlling so well, and adding in some creature comforts and other features that you really wouldn't see in the original games. As we get into the next checkpoint here and we get into the nighttime cityscape, all of these graphics just blowing by the screen, the white lines on the road blurring past, the sensation of speed and the overall pace at which you move in this game is perfection. If you know me and you know the channel, you know I absolutely love arcade racing games, and while there's a lot of modern games that get really close to the joy of 80s and 90s arcade racers, I don't think anything ever really goes 100% of the way to make me a happy arcade racing fan. Turbo OutRun Reimagined does all of the things I want, nothing more and nothing less. The control scheme is perfection. The overall physics and handling feel so close to the original OutRun, even though this isn't a brand new engine, and that being Unity. It's so impressive how the feel of OutRun has come over to a modern version of the game, while also keeping the style and the charm and the aesthetic of the original OutRun, but modernizing the graphics so they look both retro and modern at the same time. You will see that a lot of the cars look as if they're sprites, and they very may well be. I have not yet figured out if these are polygons masquerading as sprites, or if they're actually sprites with a little bit more depth in them. As we come to the field of tulips here, and we go through this green grass area, this is just so incredible. It is amazing to me to think one fan gamer could make a game that Sega should have made. If Sega released this tomorrow for $19.99 on Steam, or put it in something like one of the Yakuza games, people would have their minds blown. Sega, you should be calling the developer of this game and asking them to be able to put it in your next Yakuza or Like a Dragon game. That's how good this is. This is what Sega should be doing themselves. Give fans something like this, they would be happy all day long. Harken back to the glory days of when we loved you when you were in arcades in the 80s and 90s, and we would just be absolutely buying these games time in and time out. You'll see here I was able to win the first race, and I go onto this upgrade menu. Your car can and will be damaged during the races, and you have a quote-unquote time limit for the repairs. You're going to see we have 90 minutes to complete all the repairs, and each repair that you may want to undertake takes a certain amount of time. So there is some strategy in to keep your car going the entire way. But as we move on to the next stage here, again, this game is just capital B beautiful in motion. All of these buildings going by, all of the trees and palm trees on the side of the road. This just has a look that feels like nothing I've ever seen before in a modern context. Leave me a comment down below and tell me if you think another game that looks quite like this, because I would be curious. Now, because this is Turbo OutRun Reimagined, it does have the music from the OutRun series, and you know that's spectacular, so go ahead and listen for like 45 seconds. I'll be back and tell you a lot more about why I absolutely love this game. Now in Sega arcade racing games, the sound effects coming from the engine was always a little bit too loud. It would always tend to drown out the music just a little bit, and that's exactly what's happening here in Turbo OutRun Reimagined. But I feel like on the developer side that must have been a stylistic choice to keep it the exact same way that Sega did it, and you'll see that the bikes from Hang On are going to make an appearance as well. But I do think this game looks incredible however you play it. I just really preferred the ultra wide mode here. It gave me such an expansive view of the road ahead and a little bit more real estate to see where I was navigating that line. This just looks like Space Harrier if Space Harrier had a car, and it makes me think that modern reimaginings of both Space Harrier and Afterburner would be great as well. I want to see so many more of Sega's Superscalar games within an engine like this. Skids has done an incredible job of taking the spirit and gameplay of OutRun and marrying it to modern technology and modern control schemes. I am playing this with an Xbox Series X controller, but I'm sure it would work totally fine with a wheel as well. It just takes analog inputs and button presses. So if you have a wheel and a Windows PC, you're definitely missing out if you don't play this. And what I'm also so impressed by is just how the graphics are modernized. This looks like 2D through and through, but it is running in the Unity engine, so obviously there's some 3D involved in it. But this is going to fool you. You're going to think that absolutely everything is 100% 2D, and the road holds up as well as it takes all those twists and turns and bends. You can see all the way down the line, and I can't see a single piece of graphics in here that I just do not absolutely love. All of the colors, all of the vibrancy, all of that Sega hue and charm is here in spades around a modern engine and a modern experience, and it's still magical to me in a lot of weird ways that you can actually play something like this in your web browser. It used to be back in the day that your web browser was there to download photos and it would take you 5 minutes. Now you can play an entire game of Turbo OutRun in your browser. As we move onto this jungle stage, these lush greens, those vivid blues in the sky, the brown of the dirt-covered road just look absolutely perfect. I have absolutely no notes for this game on the presentation front. It is pretty, it's fast, it's fluid. Everything I see here just puts a smile on my face and makes me happy. And that's why I do consider it one of the best arcade racing games I have played in the last few years. There's nothing about it that makes me have anything other than a great time. I just want to keep playing this game over and over again, trying to beat my own high scores as far as the time is concerned. It's got everything you need and nothing that you don't. You have automatic manual transmission mode, you have all sorts of different vehicles, different repairs and options you can toggle. You can really make this game play however you want. It gives you the freedom to choose. But what it doesn't do is ever let up on the action, because obviously it's still adhering to OutRun and Turbo OutRun, and I do think those are some of the best 2D arcade racing games ever made. OutRun's always been one of my favorite arcade racing series, whether you're in 2D or 3D, and this goes towards that roster perfectly. I consider this just another piece of OutRun history, even if it is a fan game. This is going in the Sega canon for me, and you know I love my arcade racing games because I did an entire 3D retrospective last year on every single 3D arcade racing game Sega ever made. If this game existed back last year when I did that, I would have put it right in with Sega's own work and said that the developer Skids did as good a job as Sega ever did making a racing game. But one more chance to hear the soundtrack, as this track is quite good as well. I'll be back in 25 seconds to talk a little bit more about the history of OutRun and why this new version of it is maybe the best arcade racing game of the 2020s. But enjoy! It's got that great techno soundtrack Sega's known for because it is Sega techno soundtrack. And as we go into one of the last stages in the game here, this is the thing about Turbo OutRun Reimagined. You would be hard pressed to believe this was not made by Sega, and you'd be hard pressed to believe that this was made by one developer as a fan project. This is the type of stuff that major game companies should be looking at and saying, we want you to come make a game for us. Like Sonic did with Sonic Mania and fan games, Sega should look at the developer and say, we'd love you to make a new OutRun game for us in this engine. We want something new with the same art style. Make a new OutRun game for us. 10 out of 10. I would buy that every day of the week, and I would buy it twice on Sunday. Put it in an arcade cabinet, and I will go into the arcade and I will throw my quarters into the machine. That's how good this game is. The developer should be highly commended for this effort. You have stood toe-to-toe with the best of what Sega has had to offer as far as arcade racing games, and you have met them at every turn, pun very much intended, and you've absolutely nailed this thing. This is by far one of my favorite moments in gaming for the year, even if it still is February. There's nothing about this game I don't like except the fact that inevitably it has to end at some point in time because you've raced all the tracks. But short of that, go play Turbo OutRun Reimagined. It's completely free to download. You can tip the developer a couple bucks, and I highly recommend you do so. See you next time. Bye-bye.